Hello everyone, I'm Berkan. Today I will try to highlight some of the news that came with .NET 8 in 10 minutes. Okay, let's get started. I have divided the news I will explain today into 6 separate sections according to their topics. So we have the news that came with the .NET 8, the news that came with the C Sharp 12, ASP.NET EF Core, MOI, and Blazor. So let's first look at the serialization improvements. Many improvements have been made to system text JSON serialization and deserialization functionality in .NET 8. For example, you can customize handling of members that aren't in the JSON payload. By default, if the JSON payload you are deserializing contains properties that don't exist in the deserialized plain old common language runtime object type, they are simply ignored. Starting in .NET 8, you can specify that all members must be present in the payload. If you are not, a JSON exception is thrown. Let's continue with source generators. .NET 8 includes enhancements of the system text JSON source generator that are aimed at making the native ahead of time experience on par with the reflection-based serializer. For example, the source generator now supports serializing types with required and init properties. These were both already supported in reflection-based serialization. .NET 8 also has support for serializing properties from interface hierarchies. The following code shows an example where the properties from both the immediately implemented interface and its base interface are serialized. And now, JSync naming policy includes new naming policies for snack case and kebab case property name conversions. Also, you can now deserialize onto read-only fields or properties. That is, those that don't have a set accessor. Additionally, you can now disable using the reflection-based serializer by default. This disablement is useful to avoid accidental routing of reflection components that aren't even in use, especially in trimmed and native ahead of time applications. You can also opt non-public members into the serialization contract for a given type using JSON include attribute and JSON constructor attribute annotations. Next up, a long requested feature that has finally landed. .NET Dependency Injection container will support CAID services. This is useful when type alone is not enough to determine the right implementation. Next up, the system random and system security cryptography random number generator types introduce two new methods for working with randomness. Firstly, the new getItems method that you randomly choose a specified number of items from an input set. The example demonstrates the usage of the getItems method using an instance obtained from the random shared property to randomly insert two items into an array. And secondly, new shuffle method lets you randomize the order of span. This method is useful for reducing training bias in machine learning by varying the order in which training and testing data are presented. Next up, let's look at the new container features that came with the .NET 8. The non-root user feature on .NET 8 is a security measure that allows users to have limited access to the system without having full administrative privileges. Hosting containers as non-root aligns with the principle of least privilege. It's security provided by the operating system. If you run your application as root, your application process can do anything in the container, like modify files, install packages, or arbitrary executables. That is a concern if your application is ever attacked. If you run your application as non-root, your application process cannot do much, greatly limiting what a better could accomplish. Also, in .NET 8, there has been a change in default port used by ASP.NET Core applications. Previously, the default port assigned to ASP.NET Core applications was 80. However, starting from .NET 8, the default port has been changed to 8080. Let's look at some of the many new features that came with the C Sharp 12. Firstly, primary constructors let you define constructor parameters when you declare the class below. And secondly, starting in C#12, you can declare default parameters in lambda expressions below. And lastly, collection expressions are also introduced, which simplifies the syntax for creating various collections, provided unified approach. As stated, this eliminates the need for distinct syntax when initializing array, list, or spans. The compiler generates efficient code, optimizes collection capacity, and avoiding unnecessary data copying. Next up, let's examine some of the features that came with the ASP.NET 8. In ASP.NET 8, the concept of authentication and authorization undergoing a transformation. Especially, ASP.NET Core Identity is transitioning from focus on traditional web-based to more API-driven approach. With ASP.NET Core Identity, you can save user accounts in your app, handle user information, add security with two-factor authentication, and even connect other login options like social media logins to user accounts. In simple terms, it's all about keeping user accounts in your application and making it easy for users to log in. Prior to ASP.NET 8, there were limitations on using ASP.NET Identity in single-page applications. Because ASP.NET Core Identity Framework is primarily tailored for traditional server rendered web applications, like ASP.NET Core MVC or Razor-based applications. However, the identity API endpoints that come with the ASP.NET 8 aim to solve token-based authentication and authorization in single-page applications without external dependencies. Also, new built-in metrics of .NET 8, which are basically numerical measurements reported over time in your application and can be used to monitor the health of your application and generate reports according to those numerical values. Moreover, native ahead of time compilation is a feature that allows developers to create a self-contained app compiled to native code that can run on machines without the .NET runtime installed. It results in benefits such as minimized disk footprint, reduced executable size, reduced startup time, and reduced memory demand. In addition, some important new features have been added for the minimal API. For example, explicit binding to form values using the from attribute is now supported. This release also adds a middleware for validating anti-forget tokens, which are used to mitigate cross-site request forget attacks. Finally, with ASP.NET 8, you can create minimal API template with native ahead of time publish enabled. Next up, finally, let's examine some of the features that came with the Framework Core 8. Prior to Entity Framework Core 8, there was no good way to map the third type of object. Owned types can be used, but since owned types are actually entity types, they have a semantics based on key value, even when that key value is hidden. Entity Framework Core 8 now supports complex types to cover this third type of object. So, a value object is typically owned by a parent entity object, and using complex types with Entity Framework Core 8 is the best way to create value objects that are stored as part of your main entity. Entity Framework Core 8 also includes improvements to JSON column mapping support introduced in Entity Framework Core 7. With this version, supports indexing on JSON arrays when executing queries. And Entity Framework Core 7 supports mapping the JSON columns when using Azure SQL and SQL Server. Entity Framework Core 8 extends this support to SQLite databases. In addition, Entity Framework Core can map any enumerable property, where T is a primitive type, to a JSON column in the database. This is done by convention for public properties which have both getter and setter. For example, all properties in the following entity type are mapped to JSON columns by convention. Entity Framework Core has also official support for hierarchy ID in this release, which allows you to store and query hierarchical data in the SQL Server databases. Hierarchical data is a common data structure found in many applications. Whether you are dealing with organization structures, product categories, or threaded discussions, handling hierarchies efficiently is crucial. In .NET 8, .NET MAUI introduced many features, including shortcuts that you can associate with any menu item in the desktop application, and MAUI extension for Visual Studio Code. Blazor in .NET 8 now has very important features such as static server-side rendering, enabling per component or per page interaction, and choosing an automatic rendering mode at runtime. If you have any questions about this topic, Steve Sanderson, the original creator of Blazor, with us in this community talk, so you can ask him. And finally, one more thing. .NET Aspire. .NET Aspire is an open-native cloud-ready stack for building observable, production-ready, and distributed applications. It's an update that I'm very excited to learn more about, and I will soon publish a short article on the community ABP.io website if you would like to read my personal opinion on this subject. That's all. I hope you liked my presentation. Thank you for listening. It's your turn, Halil.
Thank you so much, Berkan. Now for the exciting part. We are, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Berkan. It was a very short, like 10 minutes, but you have mentioned almost everything in .NET and ASP.NET Core and most more. Okay, Steve, here with us today. Welcome, Steve, again. We are very happy that you are here. For a long time, we were actually waiting for that moment. So in this part, I will have some questions to you. Maybe community will have also questions, and you can answer at the end of the whole session. However, in this part, I have a few questions specifically to you. We are closely following the .NET 8 is coming with many great features as always. In previous years also we were excited, and this year is also same. We have closely followed the event. So what was the most exciting feature coming with .NET 8 for you? What do you want to say?
Can I cheat and have two favorite features?
Yeah,
I think that the two things that definitely stand out to me that I'm most excited to see how the community responds and what people build with this, where it's all going, are Blazor and what we've done with the server-side rendering features there. Hopefully that makes Blazor applicable to a wider range of application types than it was useful for in the past. Blazor has been kind of constrained in the past to be used for private applications, things where you've got a fixed number of users on your intranet or something like that, perhaps applications where you expect people to log in because of the capacity limitations of server or the bandwidth limitations of WebAssembly. But now we've got pure stateless static server-side rendering in .NET 8 that makes Blazor useful for sites that may accept an unlimited amount of traffic. You could have 1 million people come into your site all at once. If you end up on the front page of Reddit or something, that you wouldn't have had a good time with that in the past. But now with static server-side rendering, that should be possible to handle. My other thing that I'm most excited to see what people do with is Aspire. That's been the other biggest innovation, I would say, for web in .NET 8. There was some good coverage of that just a minute ago from Berkan, so I won't repeat all of that. But yeah, that's hopefully gives people the chance to use .NET in a much more modern way than they've done before.
Yeah, the Aspire part is also exciting for us because with ABP framework we are providing an open-native architecture. The ABP framework has hundreds of NuGet packets and provides a few startup templates for a layered application template, like a microservice template. So it's an open-native architecture already based on DDD, supports multi-tenancy and so on. The Aspire is taking road on this, taking distance on this road, and we see that it's a good point. I think we will also check the source code deeply to learn something if we can. Okay, the first one, the Blazor full stack web UI, is also very exciting, especially for us, because we have always we always wanted to write less JavaScript code and write more C# code for even like server rendered HTML. So can you mention about the full stack web UI with Blazor in .NET 8? Especially, I want to wonder if can it take the place of server rendered MVC or Razor Pace UI?
Yeah, well, that's definitely the idea. The idea is that Blazor is the most modern form of web UI that we have on .NET, you know, especially if we're comparing it to, say, Razor Pages or MVC views that have come in the past. The key difference with Blazor compared with those other technologies is that Blazor is a component-oriented architecture. So instead of just having a few files, the assumption is that you may compose your UI out of maybe hundreds of separate components that they can pass parameters to each other. They can independently load data, depend on DI services, trigger the rendering of other child components and that sort of thing. This is all kind of basic and obvious to people who use Blazor, but if you are coming from MVC views or Razor Pages, that's not really a thing that you could do in a very efficient or productive manner. It is possible with Razor Pages to have tag helpers and view partials, but it's, you know, that's from an earlier era of web development, whereas Blazor really represents the way that most of the most modern UI stacks work today. So yes, it is our goal to allow people to do everything that they would need in terms of web UI with Blazor. So if you've got MVC controllers that need to render some HTML, well, you can now render Blazor components statically from your MVC controller actions if you want to. If you've got minimal actions that need to return some HTML, well, once again, you can render some Blazor components from there now. So yeah, absolutely. Our goal is to provide that option. And we particularly tried to do it in a way that's easy to upgrade into. We know that people have got existing applications. You're not starting from a new project. You're starting with an existing MVC or Razor Pages or minimal endpoints application. And so we've tried to design it such that you can keep everything that you've already got and then just start to add bits of Blazor wherever it makes sense.
That's great, Nips. I'm especially following the Blazor from its first days, even it was first released. I'm always excited about the philosophy and approach, like component-based approach, C# first, and everything. So we will continue to follow the things. And to be honest, in .NET 8, I haven't had time to work with the new Blazor approach yet. I will have more time in the next weeks. We were heavily working on the ABP 8 in parallel to Microsoft. So in the next weeks, we will spend more time on this. Another question is related WebAssembly. It's also related to Blazor. However, I see that WebAssembly is getting popular in the server side too. Your talk in NDC Porto was great as always. You started from the beginning of the internet and almost development and came to the next generation of web frameworks. It was great. Me and Alper were lucky enough to listen to you in place. For those who are not familiar with it, what is WASI? How do you see the feature of WebAssembly in the server side and for interoperability purposes? What do you want to say about that?
All right. Well, that's a big topic. So firstly, before talking about WASI, you should make sure you understand what WebAssembly is. I know a lot of people will do, but just to make sure, WebAssembly is a a code format. It's a set of instructions that, is like an alternate type of executable, which is native to the web. It's designed to run in browsers in a performance sandboxed kind of way. But on its own, WebAssembly is just a set of instructions. It doesn't have any way of interacting with the outside world. The only way that WebAssembly can interact with the outside world is if you explicitly provide some APIs that it can call from the outside. And so WASI started out as an effort to define a standard set of APIs that WebAssembly could call if you want to do server programming. So if you want to do something like read files from disk, know what the current time is, generate random numbers, maybe do some cryptography operations, all that kind of thing, then the original idea of WASI is to define standards for what all those APIs would be so that you could use WebAssembly for writing server-side code. If you're wondering why you would want to write server-side code in WebAssembly, given that we've already got perfectly good x86 or x64 or ARM executable formats, why would we want another one? Well, the point of WebAssembly is that it is independent of any particular CPU type, it's independent of any operating system, and it's also independent of language. So you could compile to it from any language and run the sign binary on any server, regardless of its operating system or CPU type, and still perform well and get all the kind of sandboxing features that people know about in the browser. So that was the original idea of WASI. But things have started to change a little bit. As we move into 2024, we are going to be getting the Preview 2 of WASI. So far, we've only got Preview 1. Preview 2 is pretty different because instead of being a fixed set of APIs that was decided by some committee somewhere, in Preview 2, there's no fixed set. You can define any APIs you want. There's a new interface definition language called WIT, WebAssembly Interface Types, that allows you to define these APIs and then use them from any language. And it allows different pieces of WebAssembly code to work with each other. So this is called the component model in WASI Preview 2. You could have one component written in .NET, another one written in Go, another one written in Rust, or whatever combination you like. And as long as they share the same understanding of the APIs, which is defined by WIT, then they can call each other. So you could have a .NET application that consumes some libraries written in Go, which in turn calls into some other libraries written in Rust, and they'll all just work together. But it's not even just about cross-language interop. That cross-language interop has been done like many times in the past. One big thing that's new here is that even at runtime, these different components are still sandboxed from each other. So if you're a .NET developer and you want to consume this Go library, you don't have to worry about, is this Go library, does it contain some kind of like malicious code, or is it going to cause my application to crash or something like that? Is it going to read some part of my memory space that I don't want it to? Well, no, it can't do any of those things because it's sandboxed away, and it can only receive the data that you give to it. It can only access the parts of the host system that you grant it permission to do. And if it crashes, it can't affect the host application because of the sandboxing. So that's the kind of big way in which WASI is changing as we go into next year with Preview 2.
Okay, great. I want to ask this question, especially because it's not known by everybody. Most of people don't know such things. Actually, I didn't know. So I want to give the keyword. So maybe they want to search and research about that. I have two more questions for you. We know you're good at seeding some innovative projects like Blazor before. Are there any interesting inventions are you currently working on .NET, or if they are not secrets for now?
Secret? Well, if they were secret, I wouldn't say. I don't have anything particularly major to announce at the moment. The one thing that I am working on that I will hopefully release just as an experiment just in the next sort of week or so is some tooling for creating these WASI Preview 2 components with .NET. So I just talked a bit about what those things are, but in terms of how you would actually create them, it can be very difficult right now because most of the tooling doesn't really exist, and even what does exist certainly isn't very well integrated into .NET. But I'm creating some NuGet packages with some MS Build stuff in it that allows you to very easily just add it to your console application or your class library and produce a WASI Preview 2 component. That means you can also have things like WIT files that define the APIs that you're either consuming or producing for other components, and you'll get a nice strongly typed way in .NET to do that. Now, that makes it sound like I've invented all this stuff, but I didn't. Most of the work on that has been done by various others in the community. There's someone called Yowl on GitHub who's done a lot of impressive work to create a new way of compiling .NET to WebAssembly, and has also started off the process of creating WIT code generation for .NET. So really, I'm just using all the hard work of other people.
Okay, great. My last question is something like magazine question. In Twitter especially, some people say the feature is no-code platforms, or at least low-code platforms, you know. Some of they even say ChatGPT or AI will take our jobs. So, but we see you are, and also we are, investing our times to build frameworks that allows us to build applications with full code, like traditional, as a low-level way. What do you think about all these?
Well, it's a fascinating area. I'm glad you brought it up. It's probably obvious, but I'll just say anyway that I have no better insight than anyone else does on this subject. So I only have just guesses like everyone else does. I don't know whether AI will be able to write code like we do in 5 years. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. It's certainly quite a long way right now from being able to do that. I'm sure that many people on this call have tried it. I've certainly written lots of small bits of code by using GPT-4. And at the moment, I find that it does a pretty good job if you're only asking it to deal with, say, 50 lines of code or less. And, you know, it can more or less write, you know, some algorithm to sort some data or a simple bit of web API code or something like that if it's only 50 lines. But it doesn't really scale up beyond that right now. Generally, I find if you try and get it to do too much stuff, it will start producing a lot of bugs, and it doesn't really understand that it's got bugs. You tell it that it does, and it says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, let me fix that," and it, you know, just introduces a different bug. So, you know, we're not at the point of replacing like real programmers yet. Like, how much would it have to scale up? I guess to write an interesting, worthwhile commercial application, you need to be dealing with like 50,000 lines of code or something at least, spread out over hundreds of files. It's absolutely nowhere near doing that right now. Maybe GPT-5 will, maybe it's GPT-10 that will get to that point. I don't know. Maybe it never will. I don't know. It would be a little bit sad, I suppose, if our craft went away, the thing we've, you know, spent all this time refining, but it's a bit hard to imagine it's going away anytime soon. My hope is that in the short term, at least, it just makes us a lot more productive and allows us to not have to remember all the techniques and the patterns and so on, and can fill in to just make us able to write what we were going to write anyway, but three or five times faster or something. But yeah, I don't know. It's just guesses.
Okay. Thank you for time and for your opportunities about this. Okay. In the next part, we will continue with the ABP news. We are with Engin. Engin.
Thanks, Halil and Steve. It was a great demonstration. It was a great interview. Today, I will be talking about what is new with ABP 8.0. And let me share my screen. Okay. Let's first start with what is new with ABP Framework 8.0. We prepared a blog post, so you can check it out, and you can find the link below in the description section. We've upgraded our platform to .NET 8.0 after the release of the .NET 8.0. We are one of the early adapters. We've also upgraded to Angular 17. We are introducing dynamic claims feature, which is an important feature for MVC and Reserve Pages UI, and I will talk about in a minute. And also, we've added CDN support for our bundling and unification system. And ABP Framework provides read-only repositories, and I want to mention you about that. And in this version, we are also allowing you to set a username after you make social login or registration. As I've just mentioned about, we upgraded our platform to .NET 8.0, so you need to make some changes in your project if you want to upgrade your project to ABP 8.0. First, you need to upgrade your existing project to .NET 8.0. You can follow the Microsoft migration guides, and then you can use the ABP's ABP CLI's update command to update your application with all its NuGet and npm packages. And after you upgraded your application to both .NET 8.0 and ABP 8.0 RC1, you can follow the migration guides that we have prepared for you, and you can make the related changes in your application if anything broke in your application. And we've also upgraded our packages to Angular 17, and it has been released on November 8th. So we are also in early adapters for the Angular 17. And we immediately updated our ABP framework and ABP commercial startup templates to Angular 17. So if you give it a try to ABP 8.0 RC1, you will see the Angular 17 and all of its cutting-edge features. And in this version, we are introducing an important feature called dynamic claims, which allows you to get the latest user claims without you need to log out and then log in. And this feature is used to dynamically generate claims for you to in each request. For example, let's assume that you change your email address or confirmed your email in the application in the prior versions. When you do that, your claims will be outdated and it will be the old old email address, and it will not be confirmed. So in other words, your claims, because we are being static, it will not be refreshed. And the dynamic claims feature actually overcomes this problem and allows you to refresh your claims. And we've already documented it, so you can check it out. And it is disabled by default, and you may want to enable it. And actually, we've enabled it in our startup template. So if you create a new ABP 8.0 template, it will be came as enabled. You just need to configure the ABP claims principal factor options, as can be seen here, and set the is dynamic claims enabled option as true. And after do that, you need to add one middleware, the dynamic claims middleware, the top of the authorization middleware, and the dynamic claims feature will do rest of for you and will refresh your claims without you need to log out and then log in. And this is important for MVC and Reserve Pages UI, because in the prior version this was not possible. And also in this version, we made some enhancement on the bundling and unification system. And in this version, ABP Framework provides CDN support for MVC and Reserve Pages UI. You just need to specify your external file URLs or CDN files. And when you do that, the bundling and unification system automatically recognizes the CDN file, and it will place to your page along with the bundled CSS and JavaScript files, as can be seen here. And also, as you know, ABP Framework provides read-only repository interfaces, which are iRead-only repository and iRead-only basic repository, to explicitly indicate that your only purpose is to query data and but not change it. So by indicating that, you are saying to its framework core that I don't need to change tracking involved with my queries and this get significant performance gains. And also finally, we allow you to set username after social login. Let me rephrase this. Prior to this version, when you logged in by using one of the authentication providers such as Google, Twitter, or Facebook, your email address was becoming your username and it was shown everywhere in the application. And in this version, we wanted to enhance this flow and this behavior, and now allowing you to revise your username and email address and change it if you want. And also this is good for the GDPR regulations because your email address will not be exposed and you can change the username before register to the application and log into the application. And let's see other features for ABP Framework 8.0. We've added LDAP over SSL, also known as LDAP setting to the framework. And you can allow LDAP by checking the LDAP setting page. And actually, it's recommended to establish a secure connection, so you can enable it. And also, we made some enhancement of the object mapping side. We are supporting mapping collection of objects for custom object mappers. So once you implement an object mapper interface, as can be seen here, the following generic collection types will be supported, so you don't need to make any other configurations and you can directly use them. And also, we made some enhancement on email sending side too. The async method of the email sender service now supporting sending attachment along with the email, so you can send attachments and write your emails and send it to your clients. And so far, we've only seen the features for ABP Framework 8.0, but we've also aligned the same changes to the ABP commercial side and also introduced some new features. For example, in this version, we are supporting creating master detailed relationship in ABP Suite with few clicks, and I will mention you about that in a minute. And beside that, now we are getting profile picture from social external logins, which means when you register with one of the external authentication providers, such as Google, we are sending requests to the Google server and get the profile picture that you use in your Google account and set it as your profile picture in the application. So you don't need to directly go to the settings and add your profile picture. But of course, if you want, you can change it later on. And beside that, we've switched from also TR for the API gateway for our microservice solution template. We make this change because also it was not actively maintained. And Yarn seems a better option because it's actively maintained and is maintained by Microsoft, and it provides same feature stack and actually even more. So we decided to make this change, and also we create a migration guide for that. So if you have an existing microservice solution template, you can follow the documentation, and also you can switch your API gateway from Oslo to Yarn. And we've implemented password complexity indicators for MVC and Blazor UIs. We've already introduced this feature in the previous version, which is version 7.4 for Angular UI. And in this version, we also implemented this for MVC and Blazor UIs and also updated the documentation. And in the identity users page, in this version, we added export and import user support. So you can import external users or import users from Excel or CSV files, or you can export all of your users to Excel or CSV files. ABP Suite allows you to create master detailed relationship with few clicks. You just, when you create a master detailed relationship with Suite do everything that can be came into mind. It creates the related permissions, the user interface, the backend side, and you just need to use it. So, and we also documented this one, and actually I want to show you the documentation. Okay, I hope it's big enough. If you want to establish a master-detail relationship, actually you need to just do two main things. You first need to create a master entity by specifying entity type as master, and you just need to specify related properties, establish one-to-many or many-to-many relationship if you want. And after you click the Save and Generate button, you will be created the master entity. And after you do that, you need to create the child entity, and you need to associate it with a master entity. And you also need to specify the properties, and if you want, you can establish one-to-many relationship. And you just need to click Save and Generate button. And when you do that, ABP Suite will do everything you need to do. It will see its related permissions. It will create the master grid, the child grids, and it will make database configurations, including the foreign key relationship between master and detail entity. And you can see an example in here, order and order lines example. And you can actually add more than one child. And when you do that, you can switch between tabs and manage your child entity from your master entity in the single page. And that was all from me. I also want to mention you one more news for you. We are aiming to organize a ABP Suite webinar as we did in the last year. And in this upcoming ABP Suite webinar, we are considering to talk about new ABP Suite features, such as custom code support or creating master detail relationship and other new features. So stay tuned and follow us on our social accounts and join us in the upcoming ABP Suite webinar. Thanks for listening, and we are on you, Ru. We are on you, Bea, sorry.
Definitely. That's all right. Definitely, it would be another great episode. So stay tuned for the ABP Suite webinar. We will be announcing it from our social media accounts. And I would like to mention that social login is especially great to the people who would like to attend to our raffles. So please be sure to check the description box below for the raffle links, and also for the mentioned links from before. We always put them in there. And without further ado, for the exciting part, we are with you, Halil Ibrahim Koko, for the ABP Studio part.
Just 1 minute. Okay, thank you, Bige. Most of the followers are already knows that we were working on the ABP Studio for a while. Actually, the project idea has been started 2 years ago, but in the first year, we haven't had time to work on much actually. But in the last year, we are actually completely focused on the ABP Studio. It's a tool for developers. For who don't know, it's a cross-platform desktop application for ABP and .NET developers. It's well integrated to the ABP framework and .NET, and aims to provide a comfortable development environment for you by automating things, providing insights about your solution, making develop, run, browse, monitor, trace, and deploy your solutions much easier. So probably we will release a first beta version in the next month for pilot usage. In this talk, I want to show some progress we have taken so far. Let's start from creating a new solution. Okay, when we open the ABP Studio, we can create a new solution using this button. We have currently 4 startup templates. I will use the microservice startup template for this demo. By the way, I am running this demo just from the code in the dev branch. So excuse me if we have a problem. Let's continue. When we select the microservice template, we are asked for setting a solution name. Let's continue. We can select MongoDB or Entity Framework Core for the microservices databases. and I selected anti-framework core. Currently, we have 3 options for the database management system. Go with SQL Server. And we have all the UI possibilities like MVC UI, Angular UI, Blazor WebAssembly Server, or even Blazor MyUI hybrid application. It's like a desktop application. Or we may not include a UI, so we can create the UI of the microservice solution from scratch. Let's continue with the MVC UI. The next question is the mobile framework. If we want, we can add a mobile application that is well integrated to the backend solution. It also creates its own web API gateway. I want to select the mobile framework for now. Continue with the optional modules. There are some modules of ABP framework and also ABP commercial. So we can select the one we want and we can continue. The last question is about the UI theme. I want to select the Leptonix theme. This is the de facto theme currently with ABP framework. I want to light theme and create the solution. Okay, it creates a fully working, production-ready startup solution for us with the basic fundamental features already implemented with Helm charts, Kubernetes configuration, and whatever you want to see in production. There are 2 web applications here. In the Solution Explorer, you see the applications. We have an authentication server. This is a single sign-on server, a separate identity server. It uses OpenID Dict. There is a web application. Here we have an API gateway and 5 microservices in the beginning. The ABP Studio's Solution Explorer allows us to architect our solution. We can add microservices. We can add new gateways, new applications, new packets, modules, add existing modules. There are a lot of features. So without opening the source code, we can design the big picture. So when I click here, I can, for example, add new module. It's asking for empty module or a new microservice. I can run ABP CLI or .NET CLI commands on these projects. I can add new package, like I can add a class library, for example, in the simplest term, or it understands from the DDD, so I can add a domain layer or application layer, or I can add a Blazor server UI to the solution. We may have multiple user interfaces applications. It also have commands for entity framework core migrations. We can analyze packets, so we can see the main elements in the solution. There are a lot of more, but I don't want to focus on the Solution Explorer today. I want to focus on the Solution Runner and Kubernetes integration parts. By the way, we have a dark theme option if you want to see the dark mode. I want to go with the light currently. Now I want to close this solution and open another solution. I have already added a few microservices like ordering and product microservices for you. Let's continue with the Solution Runner. It was hard to run multiple solutions, multiple applications, especially if they are located in different solutions. Here we have a microservice solution. Each microservice has a different .NET solution. It can be located in a different Git repository, for example, and so on. So the Solution Runner allows us to run all the system with a single click, including the Docker dependencies, all the applications, and so on. For example, when I click the Docker dependencies, it starts. So I'm starting it first. Now I can start all the applications with one click. So here I see the applications are starting. If it fails on startup, it's restarting, and so on. So at the end, it will be stabilized and all started. The Solution Runner not only allows us to add Okay. We can also build applications here, build all solutions, even if they are located in different folders and so on. We can also have a monitoring system here. For example, I want to open the web application user interface. I would go with a browser and type the URL. However, we have a built-in browser here. Right-click and browse. Opens a browser inside the ABP Studio, so I can browse any service. For example, I want to open the product service. It serves a Swagger UI currently. I'm logging to application. Click at the login button. It redirects me to the authentication server application, and with the OpenID Connect authentication flow, I'm returned to the web application again. So I have simple page for product management, orders, and so on. This is just simple page. However, in this solution, we have used several pre-built ABP application modules, including identity management, for example. You can see role management page, user management page. We can edit permissions of a role, and so on. Okay. Anyway, I can create a new product, for example, product 3 is price 10, stock count 100, and create another product. Like I'm trying to create a new, the same product to get an exception, because the same product is already exists with the same name. So when we use this application, all the statistics, all the runtime data is collected by the ABP Studio, and we can see them here in the HTTP request tab. You see that all the requests are coming here. For example, in the latest request, I posted the create model. You see all the request details, headers, response headers, request payload, response payload, and another one is here. Notice that this is not only the web application's request, all the requests, even between microservices and everything. Everything happens in the solution is coming here, so I can see all the details. So this allows me to track the problems easily. I can even see distributed events. For example, when I create an order, a distributed event is published to RabbitMQ. I want to give an order for product 2. And the event is immediately shown here. You see that event data, event name, which application sent, which application received the event. So I can easily track all the events received and sent in the solution. I can easily see all the exceptions in the web application, web gateways, API gateways, microservices, everywhere in background jobs, whatever it happens. I can see the application details, stack trace here. And even if I want to go see the details, I can see the logs of each application. When I open the logs tab, I can select the application, filter by log level, search in the logs, and so on. So I'm getting live data from the application, so it is being easier to track for me. If I want to develop a product service, for example, I can stop it from here. I can open it from Visual Studio, debug it, develop it, test it, everything as normally you do. And the good news is that it is automatically integrated to the ABP Studio, even if it started from the Visual Studio. You see that it is started as external. However, we are still getting HTTP requests, events, and everything. Now I'm stopping it. Okay. Okay, now I can stop all the services here and go to the. We can even enable watch for a service. So without stopping it, I can make any change, save change, and it's automatically watch it and rebuild and rerun. For the Kubernetes integration, for the solution runner is very good for the solutions with maybe 10 applications. However, if you have 100 applications, your system resources will be used, your local system resources like CPU and especially RAM. And also it will get time to start all applications and run in your local machine. So we offer to run your solution in Kubernetes in this case. With the ABP's Kubernetes integration, you can run all the application in the Kubernetes except one of the services. You can run one of the service that you are responsible to develop in your local machine, and your local environment is automatically integrated to the Kubernetes cluster. It works like in Kubernetes. I will demonstrate how it works. However, first, before Kubernetes, we also have an Helm integration. You see all the charts coming with this solution. I can right-click and build Docker images for all the charts. I won't do that because it's getting some time here. I can install charts to Kubernetes, uninstall chart. I can have different Kubernetes environments. I am using local for this demo. Okay, you see that all the charts here. Just chart definitions and so on. Anyway. Okay, I have already deployed the chart to my local Kubernetes. Let me use the kubectl gadol command to prove it. You see the pods, services, deployments, replica sets, and other items, other resources in Kubernetes. And I have opened the web application that's running in Kubernetes, not in local, you see. I can log in the same application again. Now it's working on Kubernetes. Database and other dependencies are also working on Kubernetes, so you don't see the products I have created before. Okay, let me create. Okay, let's continue with connecting to Kubernetes. In the Kubernetes tab, we have a connect button. When I click it, it establishes a secure connection between your local computer and the Kubernetes cluster. It's actually a VPN connection using the WireGuard system. It will get some time, maybe 30 seconds. However, when it is connected, you will be able to access all the services inside the Kubernetes, even they are not exposed to outside. For example, microservices are not exposed to outside user ingress because they are hidden behind the API gateway. However, when we connect that, all the services are being accessible from my local computer. For example, I can visit the product microservice that's running in Kubernetes. I can even open the web page, website here, like I have done in the browser. So the browser integration already works. Okay, here, let me create a new product. Okay, that's good. Create it again. Okay, it gets exception. The good news is that even if the all solution works in Kubernetes, I can still collect the HTTP requests, events, exception logs, and everything, just like it is working in my local computer. Okay, let me check the next step. Okay, until yet we have deployed to Kubernetes. We have connected to Kubernetes to access all the services and collect the usage data in real time. The next step is the development. I want to develop the product microservice, for example. However, it's currently working on the Kubernetes. ABP Studio offers an interception system. When I right-click this and enable interception, it performs a proxy between the Kubernetes cluster and my computer and redirects, forwards all the HTTP requests to my local computer. To prove that, let's open the product management page and refresh it. You see that it's not processing, it's not getting products because the HTTP request from the web application is redirected to my local computer. However, I'm not currently running the product microservice. Let's run it. I'm running using Visual Studio, however, any IDE will work. Okay, let's continue and refresh the request. You see that it works. However, how to prove that my local product service is used? Let's create another product. You see that it hits the breakpoint in my local computer. I can continue and get the exception. Okay, let's make a development. You see that if the product name is used before, I am throwing an exception. Instead of that, I will add a random number at the end of the product name to don't have an exception. Name is name plus random helper of ABP's framework. I can use get random. Okay, I just added a random number if the product name was used before. Normally, I can stop the application and restart. However, it's not needed because Visual Studio offers us a hot reload system. When I click the hot reload, it all happens. Now it is live. I can go to the UI again, press the save button again. You see the request comes like product C. Continue, debug it, and see that new code is working and the number is added after the name. Let's continue. Okay, you see that we are not getting an exception anymore. It's adding a random number at the end of the product. Okay, everything works. Now I can stop the development, stop my application, commit my change to Git, whatever you like. But if okay, and I can disable the interception. Okay, when I disable the interception, the product service in the Kubernetes cluster will continue to be used by other services. To prove that, let's create the product C again. You see that we are getting an exception. It returns to the previous behavior because the Kubernetes cluster is running the previous version of the product service. To fix that, I can right-click the product service and select the redeploy command. Okay, it will take a few seconds because it is regenerating the Docker image and then running the helm install command. Okay, I'm clicking the save button again. Now the new version will be in the Kubernetes cluster and it will save. That's all. Okay, you see that we have deployed all the solution. Think that there are hundreds of dependencies and everything works in Kubernetes. However, I am only responsible to develop the product service. All I want to do is to run the product service as always in Visual Studio, debug it, test it, do everything as normal. So this is possible with ABP Studio. If you have any problem, if you have any error, we can easily see all the exception details here. We can trace, see logs. We can even see if the authorization header is not sent and everything. Okay, that's all from me from this demo. Begin.
Thank you so much. It is safe I mean, literally safe to say everyone is so excited about ABP Studio. You see the chat section afterwards, but without keeping Steve wait, we and you community members wait for Steve's answers for your questions. We'll hop onto the question and answer section, and after that, I will announce the winners of the raffles. For the raffles, you can check out the description box below, and you can enter to that. It will finish in like 5 to 10 minutes. So please be sure to check it out. And right now we are with you for the question and answers.
Did you pick any question, Alper?
Maybe we can talk about is this similar to Aspire, the Microsoft's new?
Yes, Steve, what did you think about the ABP Studio? Did you watch it?
I did watch it. Yes, that was very impressive. Yeah, that does so much more than I would have thought. So yeah, very cool. Love to find out some more about that.
Thank you very much. The question is, does ABP Studio do the same as Aspire? Not same. There are some similarities, I know, but not same. Can it work? Let's start from the beginning.
Okay, this one is the first.
Will ABP 8 Blazor support the new server-side rendering? Yes, it will definitely support. We have tried it. I personally didn't try, but we have tried that it works. There is no reason that it doesn't work, because the ABP's main purpose is not hide something behind the skin or is not wrap a feature of the underlying framework. It's completely transparent. Everything works with regular Blazor project, works with ABP framework.
He has another question. When can I get ABP Studio Beta?
Hopefully in the next month. We will see.
Okay. We have another question about JSON column mapping. Only work on yeah, it's we have explained that it's a new feature come with EF Core 7, I think. It works, yes, for SQL Server and SQL Lite. Rafael Gonzalez asks about, will ABP introduce minimal APIs in their auto-generated endpoints in MVC and Blazor projects?
Actually, we didn't think about that. Yeah, ABP's auto-generated endpoints actually not generated code. It makes your plain application service classes and makes them as exposed as REST API endpoints. So there is no generated code. So it doesn't matter how it works for you.
Thomas asking, I think, to Steve, I remember it being said that MVC was preferable over Blazor in terms of CO. Will that be any different in the future?
Yes, it will, because with static server-side rendering, you can do exactly the same sort of static HTML that you would from MVC. So yeah, it completely closes that gap.
Okay. Another question, Hussein. Steve, we would like to know, should we go to Blazor rather than MVC specifically in the next future?
Well, it remains a matter of your preference, really, but no one's taking away or deprecating MVC or Razor. And MVC itself isn't really necessarily about UIs. MVC can be used for APIs as well, or for just anything that your server does. So if you like the MVC architectural pattern, then you can keep on using it. And you can use it either with Razor views or with Blazor views, whichever one you feel best about. But in general, yes, Blazor is the more modern and recommended option when it comes to actually generating HTML.
Yeah, I will be very happy if this fully happens, because we are currently maintaining 3 UI frameworks like Angular, Blazor, and MVC. For every feature, for every module, we are recoding the same functionality in 3 UIs. So I will be very, very happy if it's unified in Blazor.
Mitch, question for Steve. How can we deploy a new version of Blazor server application without causing all of the clients to lose connection? Right now, a deploy causes effective downtime.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So it kind of depends on how sophisticated you want to be. So in one sense, you could just say, well, it's not really that much of a problem because if your deployment completes more or less instantaneously, then your users will reconnect and then they'll carry on. They would potentially lose any state they've got in their UI. Two things you can do to make this better, though, depending on how much work you want to do. One of them is you can try and make the UI state get preserved across the reconnection. So, for example, I've got a NuGet package that I released called Stateful Reconnection. You can search for that. If you try that out, then whatever state is in the user's forms that are on the screen at that time will be preserved, even if they reconnect to a different server after your deployment completes. And then the most sophisticated option would be a strategy called blue-green deployment, and different kinds of hosting systems may support this. For example, Azure App Service does support this. So you've got your production application running in one set of slots. You deploy your next version into some staging slots, and then you tell the cloud host that you want to swap. But it doesn't just swap instantly. It keeps the existing connections running and simply directs new connections to your new set of slots. And then hopefully after a few seconds, a few minutes, or maybe after half an hour or whenever, all the people that were using the previous version of your application will have gone away and everyone will now be on the new one and no one will ever have been forced to disconnect. So that's quite a bit more involved, but you can do that if it's important enough to you.
Okay. Maybe to Engin.
Let me pick the next question for Engin. Is the same question?
Yep, I would like to show the same one.
Engin?
Yeah, yes, you can define multiple child entities for a single master entity, and you can switch between tabs and manage them from the master entity.
Engin, also, will ABP Studio replace ABP Suite? Maybe you can answer this one, or Halil.
I can answer.
Okay,
yeah.
Sure.
Actually, currently, we are not trying to re-implement any feature in ABP Suite. As better, we are integrating two products. In ABP Studio, there is a menu item that opens the ABP Suite UI that can generate the same code, that can make the same code generation with the ABP Studio template. So it can work together, but in the long term, we will see. However, currently, we don't want to invest our times to rebuild the same thing again. It already works.
Okay, Jan is asking to Steve. He's working on a media player, and he asked, is multi-threading support is gonna be in Blazor WebAssembly?
Well, we hope so, but it's not confirmed. Yeah, it's something that the runtime team, or especially Pavel on the runtime team, has been doing a huge amount of work on recently. It's very complex to map the way that .NET thinks about multi-threading into the kind of multi-threading that's possible inside browsers. And we don't really want to create a version of multi-threading that doesn't really work because, you know, it's too different from what existing code expects. So Pavel is doing a lot of work to explore that and come up with different strategies. Our hope is that in .NET 9, we will have that feature included, but it's not absolutely confirmed yet.
Okay.
Which one?
Okay, take this question.
Maybe it's not can be directed to you, but Microsoft is making so many improvements to Blazor and MAU, but not migrating hundreds of its own websites and applications to these platforms. Why?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I know that it seems from the outside like you would think, oh, Microsoft should use its own products in a consistent way for everything. But thinking of it like that is not really appreciating the sheer scale of Microsoft as a company. You know, we've got something like 200,000 employees. We've got products that are like literally 30 years old. There's just so much going on. The idea that it would be centrally coordinated and somebody would say, oh, everybody is going to migrate to a specific version of the specific products. It's just not how large corporations, it's certainly not how Microsoft works. If you take something like the Office web-based products, which use a lot of React, if you're wondering why do they use React, why isn't it .NET? Well, it's largely to do with the exact point in time when the team started building those products. You know, it predated Blazor for one thing. They couldn't have used Blazor, it didn't exist. And now they're so invested in that it wouldn't make good commercial sense for them to throw away the, you know, hundreds and hundreds of person years of effort that they've done there. So yes, we do see quite a lot of usage of Blazor internally within Microsoft for lots of our internal applications. But yeah, you shouldn't expect that the absolutely massive ones are going to be migrated just for the sake of using a different technology.
How much time we have?
Last 3 questions. Can I pick this? Okay, first one to Steve is in the foreseeable future, will WebAssembly be able to manipulate the DOM? Will the browser integrate it like JavaScript? What do you think?
Well, people keep asking this question, and I never understand why people ask it or what they think that it even means, because the DOM APIs are JavaScript APIs. So what would it mean for WebAssembly to call them? Well, it means WebAssembly can call JavaScript. Can WebAssembly call JavaScript already? Yes, it can. So in any meaningful sense, WebAssembly can already manipulate the DOM. That's how Blazor WebAssembly works. I'm not sure what additional benefit would be accomplished by somehow having a WebAssembly specific way of reaching the DOM APIs when they're already JavaScript APIs anyway. It's not like there's any less overhead in doing that.
I think the question is like we don't see JavaScript at all in Blazor. You know, sometimes you want to use, we have to use JavaScript code, but it's mostly like using existing libraries, existing JavaScript libraries. However, it's not related to WebAssembly. Yeah.
Okay. That's not how I interpreted the question. I thought it was a question about WebAssembly in general, not about Blazor. But yeah, I appreciate that in Blazor, you're going from .NET to JavaScript rather than from WebAssembly to JavaScript.
Yeah,
so
we want to do everything in C# because we are very comfortable with it. Okay. The next question is about the ABP Studio. This interception feature, does this mean that we will be able to take production requests on our local environments for debugging? It's technically possible, yes. It works in any other environment. However, we don't suggest, because when you do that, if your production takes many requests, all the requests will be forwarded to your local computer, and your production environment will behave different than you expect. So it's not a good thing. We designed it for development, test, and staging environments, not for production actually. However, it's technically possible. If you have to, you can do. Does the ABP Studio collects the events and logs even if I access the URLs in system browser as well? Definitely. Actually, it doesn't collect the events, logs, and everything from the browser or from the UI. It collects directly from the application. There is a client library that makes a gRPC connection to the ABP Studio when you start the application in development mode, and it sends all statistics to the ABP Studio. So with these questions, I think our time is over. Actually, we were expecting like 1 hour or 1 hour and 10 minutes. Now we are over time. Bige, we are at you for closing.
Yeah, most of the times we experience this problem, but it's okay because today we were with Steve and everyone was so excited. So thank you so much again, one more time, for being with us today, Steve. we would like to see you in more episodes in the future if you would be interested in it.
I hope we will request.
Yes, we'll keep in touch. So for another exciting part, today was all about excitement. The winners of the raffles are described below. I'm going to try to pronounce your names, but before I do that, you should receive an email from us. So please just reply to that email. From now on, we're going to keep on doing like this, so you won't have to write an email to us from scratch. So for the JetBrain.Ultimate subscription winners, we have Enes Koroğlu, Yusuf 109 and 01, I guess. Yeah, and Felix Krobite, something like that. And for ABP Commercial Personal License winner, we have Nabursa Manjic, I believe, and Pragmatic Clean Architecture course by Milan Jovanovic. Mind, KFLILY. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. I think that was a huge mistake for me.
Yeah, I think you can write them in the comments section or description. No need to read now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I was almost finished anyway. So thank you so much for being with us today and allocating your hours with us. All right, then. We'll see you on the next one, you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.